Have you ever been told to chew with your mouth closed? It's one of the first table manners most of us learn, right up there with "don't talk with your food in your mouth." But have you ever wondered why? Where did this rule even come from? It wasn't always a thing. In fact, if we time traveled back a few centuries, you'd find that noisy, open-mouthed chewing was pretty common and nobody batted an eye. So what changed? How did this simple act become a cornerstone of polite society? Well, grab a snack and maybe try to chew quietly while you listen, because we're about to take a deep dive into the fascinating history of chewing. Let's start our journey in ancient times. In societies like ancient Rome and Greece, banquets were loud, boisterous affairs. The focus was on abundance, conversation, and entertainment. The sounds of eating, including chewing and slurping, were just part of the lively atmosphere. There wasn't a strict code of conduct about how one should eat, as long as you were enjoying the feast. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and things weren't much different. Feasting was a communal activity, often loud and messy. People ate with their hands from shared platters, and the idea of personal space, let alone quiet chewing, was completely foreign. The main concern was getting enough to eat, not how you looked or sounded while doing it. The real shift began during the Renaissance, particularly in the royal courts of Italy and France. This was a period of great change, not just in art and science, but in social behavior too. The concept of civility started to take shape. For the first time, people began to think about how their actions affected others, even at the dinner table. One of the most influential figures in this movement was a guy named Erasmus of Rotterdam. In 1530, he wrote a little book called On Civility in Children, which became a massive bestseller. It was basically the first ever etiquette guide, and it laid out rules for everything from how to greet someone to, you guessed it, how to eat politely. Erasmus argued that making loud noises while eating, like smacking your lips or chewing with your mouth open, was animalistic. He believed that refined, civilized people should distinguish themselves from the common folk by showing more control and consideration for others. This idea of separating the refined from the crude really took off. As the rising middle class grew wealthier, they wanted to emulate the aristocracy. They saw adopting these new, civilized manners as a way to signal their upward social mobility. Table manners became a status symbol. If you knew the proper way to use a fork, which was a new invention at the time, and if you ate quietly without making a mess, it showed you were educated and sophisticated. Suddenly, books on etiquette were all the rage. Authors across Europe were writing guides teaching people how to navigate social situations, and a huge part of that was dining. The rule to chew with your mouth closed was repeated in almost every single one. It was a clear, easy-to-follow rule that instantly marked you as part of the in crowd. By the Victorian era in the 19th century, this rule was set in stone. The Victorians were obsessed with order, propriety, and public appearance. For them, open-mouthed chewing wasn't just impolite, it was seen as a moral failing. It suggested a lack of self-control and discipline. Plus, with the growing understanding of germs and hygiene, people started to see open-mouthed chewing as unsanitary. Nobody wanted to see half-chewed food or get accidentally spit. So, mothers began drilling this rule into their children from a young age, ensuring it was passed down from one generation to the next. What started as a way for Renaissance nobles to feel superior had become a fundamental part of Western culture, a basic sign of good breeding and respect for the people you're sharing a meal with. So, the next time you sit down for a meal and consciously close your mouth to chew, remember that you're participating in a tradition that's over 500 years old. It's a small act that connects us to a long history of people trying to be a little more considerate of one another. It's not just about noise. It's about showing respect and being part of a shared social understanding. It's pretty amazing how something so simple can have such a rich and complex history, isn't it? Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.